Personally, I think one of the more confusing things about setting up Django and using Django is how to use static files. It took me a long time to figure out kind of logically how they expect you to use it. So I'm going to do my best in this video to talk about it. Looks like I got the wrong version actually. 2.2 should be the version. So here's the documentation where it outlines how to use static files and it talks a little bit about them, but I don't really think it does the best job at explaining kind of what they're for and how you're supposed to use them and why they're supposed to use them this way. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do my best to explain. So basically what static files are they're files that are typically static in nature and they exist on your server, meaning they don't change very often. Static files also can refer to images that are stored on your server. So like when we created this blog post, there's images associated with them. Those would be known as static files. But there's kind of two different types of static files. The type that's stored on your server and the type that's not. So the type that's not is like stuff that users upload, like with a blog post or their profile image, whatever, anything like that. That's stuff that's not stored on your server. Typically that's stored on something like Amazon Web Services, and then you only store like a pointer on your server that points to that content delivery network. That's what it's known as, a content delivery network. The other type of static files are ones that are used on your website constantly and they don't change. This can be things like CSS, JavaScript, maybe some website logo, stuff like that. You can also put those technically on your content delivery network, aka Amazon Web Services, but you can also store them on your server. It's not a big deal. Basically, the takeaway here is don't store things that users can upload onto your server. Store those on a content delivery network like Amazon Web Services, and then save a pointer on your server to point to those. So all of that I'm sure is very confusing to you. So I just want to kind of explain the overall concept before we get into it. And like I said in the previous video, in this video, I'm just going to be showing you how to set up static files that are saved locally because we're in a development environment right now. But later we will work on setting up Amazon Web Services at the end of this course when I actually deploy this server to be a live website. So what is the first step? Well, the first step is you could follow the documentation, but I'm going to be showing you pretty much everything you need here. So the first step is setting up these static URLs. So there's four things that you need to define. A static URL, a media URL, which is just going to be /media, /media. And then we need a static root and a media root. So static root equals, this is going to be, what we want to do here is we want to reference the path to the directory of where the project is stored. So I can do os.path.join base directory and then reference a folder named static content delivery network or static CDN. And I want to do the same thing with the media root. So media root, same thing, except this is media content delivery network. Actually, I lied. We need to define 5 things, not 4 things. The last is a static files DIRs, static files directories. And this is just referencing where these directories are going to be located. So I want to copy this, put that in here. This is just going to be static. This is just pointing to this static folder right here. Copy that, and this one's media. And all this one is it's pointing to this media folder right here. So right now these folders don't exist, so we need to create them. So I'm going to go into our project. I want to create a bunch of new folders. First one's going to be media. Second one's going to be static. It looks like I already have a static folder. That shouldn't have been there. I think I accidentally added that, but anyway, that shouldn't have been there already. It does need to be there. Next is static_CDN, and the last one is media_CDN. The next step is going into, well, I'm going to press Control S first of all to save that, and now I'm going to go into urls.py. And at the very bottom, I need to define something. So I want to write if settings.debug, meaning we're in a development environment, URL patterns plus equals, and I want to reference those static directories. So static, this is going to be settings.static URL, and document root equals settings.static root. And I want to copy that line, and there's going to be another one for the media URL. So media URL, and then of course media root. And I want to make sure that I have the settings import up here, which I don't. So I want to come down here and do from django.conf import settings and press Control S. So what this does is it's telling the project where the static URL is, where the media URL is, where the root is, where the two roots are. If we are in debug mode, which is denoted by this constant right here. And in production, you never want to run with debug mode on. You would always have this off. So that's how it can basically figure out whether to use static in development or static in production, which will be different. Like I said, we're going to be using Amazon Web Services. So now I'm sure this isn't making any sense to you. You're very confused. So first let's do some examples, and then I'm going to explain kind of what's happening. So before we create, static is not defined. Oh, I need to import static here too. So from Django conf.urls.static import static and save that. Looks like it's reloading. There we go. Okay, so like I was saying, I want to kind of just show you some things, and then I'm going to talk about those examples. I think that's the best way to explain this. So first of all, I want to delete the blog posts that we already have. So I'm deleting those. I want to check to make sure the images have been deleted. Looks like they haven't. So I want to, now that our static files are set up, they should delete after. But anyway, so I'm going to delete that folder. Now let's create a couple blog posts. So this one is going to be first blog post. This is the first blog post. I want to choose an image. It can be any image, doesn't matter. Choose an author, save, and let's create a second one. So I'll create new blog post, second blog post. This is the second blog post, and just choose another image. It doesn't matter. And choose an author, which is me, save. There we go. So we have two blog posts. So let's go into Sublime Text and see what happened. So notice right away that those images were not saved in the blog app. So now let's take a look at our other folders. Let's take a look at media. Looks like that's empty. Media CDN. Looks like we have a new folder named blog. There's the user, and then there's those images. So those two images were saved in our media content delivery network folder. Let's take a look into static. That's empty, and static CDN is also empty. So what happened here? Why were they saved into the media CDN folder? So the way Django sets this up, even when you're in a development environment, it basically this media CDN folder is imitating your media content delivery network that it would use in production. So if this was production, nothing would have got saved in here. It would have got saved on Amazon Web Services or whatever you were using to save your media. This media CDN folder is just used for when you're in development and you need to kind of mimic the behavior of the server when it's live. And there was nothing put into the static content delivery network because we don't have anything. So how do we get things into the static content delivery network? Well, what we can do is we can put things into the static folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag an image. I'm going to drag this Coding with Mitch logo image. So I'm grabbing that, I'm dragging it over, and I'm going to put it into the static directory. So now it's in here. And now I need to figure out how I'm going to use that on my server. So what you need to do is I'm going to stop the server. I would do python manage.py collect static. And what collect static does is it looks inside of the static directory, so this directory, and it looks to see what files are in there, and it pushes those files to your content delivery network. When we're in a development environment, that means it's going to push them to this static content delivery network folder. If we were in production, that would mean that it would push them to your Amazon Web Services S3 or whatever service you were using to store your static files. So if I press enter here, it should say 120 static files copied. So there's actually a bunch of other static files too that come built in with Django. So that's why there's a whole bunch. But if we take a look here, now there's this admin folder, and there's the Coding with Mitch logo that's been pushed into the static content delivery network folder. So where did this admin folder come from? Well, this is all the styling that's associated with the Django admin. Because remember, when you first set up Django, you have the server's not running. You have that admin console that's already set up with default CSS. Like all this stuff just doesn't come out of nowhere. It's built in with Django. So what's happened when I collected static is it collected all the static files that are associated with this admin kind of console and pushed them to my content delivery network. So that's kind of how that works. Now, if I wanted to use this Coding with Mitch logo, I can reference it inside my templates. So like, for example, I could go into account, and I could go into the login screen, and I could add this logo now to a template. So I'm going to write div class deflex flex column, and I'm going to do PB3. So padding bottom 3, just adding some padding there. And I'm going to add an image, and the source to that image will be that static file that I created. But before I can use any static files inside of a template, I need to go load static at the top to tell Django that I'm going to be referencing something from the static content delivery network. So I'm going to go static, and now I reference the name, the name of that file. In that case, that's going to be coding with Mitch underscore logo dot, I believe it's a JPG. Let's take a look. It's a PNG. Coding with Mitch logo.png, and so that would be the source. I could add some alt text just to say, coding with Mitch logo. That doesn't matter. That's basically just for Google search results. It looks at the alt text. I can set some width and height. So width could be 72 pixels. Height could be 72 pixels. I'm going to shrink this a little bit. And there we go. So now if I press Control S and I save that, and I go to the server, and I was to go to, let's log out, let's go to the login screen. Looks like it's not being delivered. So sometimes also when you use static files in a development environment, sometimes it doesn't refresh properly when it's serving them. So open a new incognito window and try it using that. If that doesn't work, then you have something wrong. So now I know that I've done something incorrect when loading this static resource. And I see it right there. I have a typo. So that needs to be coding with Mitch logo. I'll press Control S. Let's try, before we try the incognito window, I'll try the regular one. If I refresh it, there's the logo. It's still not centered though, so I need to center this image. I'm going to go class equals, this is going to be image fluid so that it's responsive. I want to do MX auto, so an auto margin in the X direction on both sides, and do D block. So now if I save that and I look at my image, it should center in the middle of the form. So there is my logo, and it's being served from my content delivery network. Now I can do the same thing with the registration screen. So if I copy, I need to copy this whole div here. Do tab, copy this div. If I save that, go to the registration screen, I could do the same thing. So if I paste that in, save it, go to my my app. Oh, looks like I didn't load static. So remember, if I'm using static files, I need to write load static, save that, go back to the website, refresh, and then there's that nice Android logo. But media files aren't the only way, like I said, that you can use static files. You can use static files for things like CSS and JavaScript. So that's what I'm going to show you next. So if we come into our project and I go into, let's see, we can go into, actually, should I even use it? I don't really need to use it as static. Yeah, I'm not going to use it as static. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go into templates, go to snippets, create a new file. I'm going to call this base css.html. And inside here, I'm going to add some CSS for the project. This isn't really, this isn't related to static files. I just wanted to do this. So I want to do body. So I'm looking for any tags with the name body. I want to do background color and change the background color to F2, 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 which is a light gray color. So now I'm going to save that. I'm going to go into base.html and I'm going to insert that. So snippets, base css.html, I want to include that. And now if I go to my project, the whole background should be gray. So that looks much better. It's going to look a lot better too, because when we actually have the blog posts, I want it to kind of look like reddit.com, which has kind of that gray background, and then blog posts right down the middle, or Twitter. They do kind of the same thing. So if I was to log in and take a look, they have kind of that gray background, and then they have this middle column section for the blog post. So that's what I kind of want our website to look like. So that's why I want to change this background color. So that's going to be it for this video. I know static files are probably still pretty confusing to you. It's going to take a long time, honestly, to get used to them. So if you're confused, read this page, and also just know that at the end of the course, I'm going to be launching this website in production. So it's going to be live on the internet. And I'm going to show you how to set up Amazon Web Services S3 and all that kind of stuff. So then it will make more sense to you, I'm sure. So in the next video, we are going to work on giving users the ability to create new blog posts from the website. So I'll be creating a form that they can fill out to post a new blog.